This is FE Peer Review. The date is April the 23rd, 2025. Flat Earther fails to grasp the concepts of claims, evidence, and dialogue. This video is addressed directly to David, who left a comment on my video earlier, but I think other people will find it interesting and useful, hopefully. And if any Flat Earthers are watching this, I hope they will give it some thought as regards claims, evidence, and dialogue. David. The main point of this video is not to challenge your flat earth beliefs, though I have solid evidence that they are wrong. It is to make you aware of the relationship between making claims and supporting them with evidence. You seem to be a sincere person, but you are being dishonest to yourself when you form beliefs about the natural world which you are unable to support with evidence. This is the video in question. I put it out about 4.5 years ago. I haven't looked at it since. It's one of my long-distance observation videos where I review the long-distance observation videos of flat earthers, conduct a little peer review, and make some suggestions on problems in their videos, poor technique, irrational conclusions, such things as that, in the hope of being able to elevate the quality of research. That's what I try to do. That's what I tried to do in this video. And this is the one that he's commenting on. David Stanley left this comment. However, it is extremely doubtful that the second ship, the Eagle Kinabalu, at 20.8 miles away, would have been seen with refraction, but you missed out that part, so very selective debunk. However, if you have some pixie dust and a magic refraction calculator, thanks Walter, all is possible. Makes you Disney, though. But you're right to say that the observations should have been repeated, better still with two teams, Flat Earth and Globe Earth. So rather than a debunk, why don't you repeat those experiments yourself with two teams? Until then, I consider this debunk damage control and deflection spin away from the truth. If you do the experiment, many controls must be put in place. Okay, I'm not going to interject a lot of things. Mostly I'm just going to be going through these comments as I wrote them. But here I do want to say two things just to get off to a good start and get them out of the way. First of all, David, I have no idea who he is. As far as I can recall, I've never seen a comment from him before on any of my videos. I have no knowledge of him or his channel. So this is the first time in my memory that he has ever communicated with me. And he finds it necessary to be derisive and insulting. He says, however, if you have some pixie dust and a magic refraction calculator, thanks Walter, all is possible, makes you Disney, though. That is really simply rude. I went over and took a look at David's channel to see who this person is. Here's his channel. He describes himself, quote, as a spiritual man. David, I ask you, does a spiritual man walk up to somebody he's never met before and insult him? Insult his intelligence and be rude? You really ought to take a minute and give a little thought to how you approach people and see if it reflects your aspirations to be a spiritual man. Another thing I noticed on David's videos is that he has a couple of nice videos of the sun passing through the sky and some lovely sunsets which demonstrate things such as underlit clouds. He also has good video footage, although he doesn't use a solar filter. He's got good video footage showing that the angular size of the sun does not change as it passes through the sky. However, he seems to fail to understand the implications of these things his own eyes see. The last thing I want to mention is that David appears to be English, and I guess living on the south coast of England. Most of these videos seem to be taken in the Portsmouth area. He seems to speak English as his native language, so I'm not going to harp on about his grammar mistakes and his punctuation mistakes, but I do think that when I see that kind of poor writing from somebody who doesn't have the excuse of it being a foreign tongue to them, I think it's representative of poor thinking, poor quality thinking, unclear thinking. Okay, that's it. I'm going to go back to the main comment string now, and we'll continue. It's been 4 years since I've looked at that video. Some thoughts. First, when you stick your camera down inches above the water level, you're putting it in the zone where there will be an absolute maximum amount of distortion due to refraction. To then deny refraction is an issue is blatant dishonesty. Get up away from the water 10 to 15 feet and do the observations on days when the weather minimizes refraction effects. There's no point otherwise. Second, the Eagle Kinabalu has a draft of 13.5 meters. I'll insert here, I actually found a second source that said 14.5, so I can't vouch for the precise draft, but it's somewhere in that range, 13.5 to 14.5. What is its freeboard? You don't know, David, and I don't know. Then there is all the structure above the freeboard. That all amounts to a considerable bit of height. From the view of the Shetland Trader a minute or so before, we can see that there is a lot of vertical stretching happening due to refraction effects. The vertical distortion is substantial and obvious. This would only get worse with distance. So we're dealing not only with normal refraction, but this distortion as well. In the video, at 48 minutes 20 seconds, we barely see any of the deck at all. Given the amount of superstructure that is visible, there should be much more freeboard visible if it is not being obstructed by curvature or distorted by extreme atmospheric effects. I'll show you an image or two from the video for that. Here's a screenshot. This is the view. This is the ship in question out here in the distant horizon. We see some of the superstructure up here, and we can see perhaps a little bit of the line of the deck there. That's as good a quality as the image gets. The person making the video attempts to give us some dimensions to try to put things in a proper sense of scale. We see here a close-up, not a close-up from this video, but another photograph of the ship. And we can see that the draft line would be, I guess the draft line would be measured from this black line down. So somewhere between 13 and 14 meters down from there. And I don't know how far under the water it goes, as we see the ship here. But then we've got a considerable amount of hull up here, not much less in height than its superstructure. Minus the antenna. Here we see the superstructure. And a little bit of the hull here. So that's what we're talking about. Third, in the video, we don't see far enough for the Earth to be flat. Fourth, I made a video called Atmospheric Refraction and Long Distance Observations Final Statement. This video here, and in the description, these are the resources. In the description, there's a list of 12 resources that included scientific, industrial, and military texts on how refraction works and how to account for it. Refraction is a real phenomenon. Until flat earthers can prove it's not real, convince scientific bodies they're wrong about the related natural laws, convince industries such as telecommunications to stop using it, and convince the world's militaries to stop using it as well, flat earthers who complain about it are just barking up a tree. Last point, until flat earthers can actually present an accurate 2D map of the flat earth, they've got absolutely nothing, and are contributing absolutely nothing of value to the advancement of human knowledge. David, do you have such a map? David responded, if a boat goes over your curve, then it is impossible to bring it back into view unless you use a zoom. You are clutching at straws, but sinking with your ship. In that sentence, we have a claim. It is impossible to bring it back into view, and no supporting evidence. I continue on to his next comment. He starts by quoting something I had written. When you stick your camera down inches above the water level, you're putting it in the zone where there will be absolute maximum amount of distortion due to refraction. I will insert here that in the video in question, the camera was set at 30 inches above the water. Sure, that's the murkiest part, but you cannot just lift up something that is over the supposed curve with refraction at those distances. Your Walter refraction adjuster is just BS, end of. And there we have two more claims by David, and he fails to provide any evidence to support either of them. The first claim, you cannot just lift up something that is over the supposed curve with refraction at those distances. You cannot just lift up something. That's a claim. David, there's no evidence there. Second claim, your Walter refraction adjuster is just BS. Again, no evidence. Okay, my response. If the boat has not actually gotten so far out that it is actually being hidden by the horizon, then yes, zooming with a good lens can bring it back into view. But if the boat has gone out beyond a certain distance, based on your observation height above the water surface, no amount of zoom can cause the hidden parts of it to come back into view. I hear flat earthers consistently make the claim they can pull such a boat back into view simply by zooming in, but they, like you, never back it up with solid evidence. What you need to do is make the observation, including your observation elevation, the distance to the boat, and enough information about the dimensions of the boat that we can reasonably quantify what we are seeing. Then actually do the zoom and show it happening. I encourage you to do such an observation and publish it here on YouTube. If you do, I will be happy to tell my viewers about your video. On the other hand, raising the height of the viewer will indeed bring the hidden portions of the boat back into view. I have a video demonstrating exactly that. In short, I've just made a claim, and I am going to now show you evidence supporting that claim. It is called Ship on the Horizon, Part 1, Observation and Distance to Horizon. I encourage you to look at it, David. And here's that video. We're not going to watch it, but I'm just going to give you a couple of screenshots. This is a video I put out a few years ago. I'll put a link in the description. It was based on video material I found from a fellow named Marco, who kindly allowed me to use his material. He had an interesting experience. He was on the beach. Where was it? I think it was Jamaica. He was on the beach and he saw an anchored ship off at the horizon. The beach where he was at had a hotel right there with 5 floors, 5 levels. And so he used his camera to go from level to level, starting at the beach all the way up to the 5th floor. Within a span of just a few minutes, he got views of that ship from all these different floors of the hotel all the way down to the water, to near the water level at the beach. And they were all taken within a very short time frame, a few minutes. So the ship apparently was anchored and not moving. But even if it had been moving, it would not have been able to move very far. And what he showed with his views showed really clearly that the higher up he went, the more of the ship he could see. The lower he went, the more of the hull was obstructed from bottom up. And he didn't just go from the beach to the 5th floor of the hotel. He also went back down again and showed that when he got back down again, once again, large parts of the ship were obstructed from view. So it's really great observation to demonstrate that changing your height while looking at something far out at the horizon does indeed correlate with how much obstruction there is. And if you have all the data to do the math, you could actually derive the curvature of the Earth from that information. Marco, unfortunately, didn't have all that data. He didn't have the distance the ship was away from the hotel. So it's not possible using his film to actually do the math. But it's really good observational data. And I think a model, given it was unplanned and it was just, he just happened to be there at that time, it was a good observation that he did. So here we're down low. I think this is beach level, if I remember right. And we see superstructure of the ship. And we can see the rest of the ship coming across here. Now he's at level 2. We can see that there's more of the ship visible. Here he's at level 3, and yet more of the ship becomes visible. We can see this piece in the back now. Here we're at level 5, and you can see a whole red stripe has appeared down here on the hull. In his original video, he goes right back down to the beach again. It looks like I went into doing a little bit of diagramming to show what was going on there with the different levels, my estimate of the different levels, heights, and so forth. But like I said, we didn't have we didn't have the distance to the ship, and we didn't have, the details of the dimensions of the ship, so could only go so far with the analysis. Anyway, there you go. You're down at the beach, and that's what you see. Moments later, let's see, he's got a timestamp here, 5:01, and then 8:34, so it's been 3.5 minutes, and he's up on the 5th level, and that's what you see. I think that's pretty impressive. So that's the video I'm referring to here. I have a video demonstrating exactly that. It's called Ship on the Horizon. I encourage you to look at it. And I want to make the point here to David that what did I just do? I made a claim about when you go up, you see more of the ship, and I supported that claim with evidence. That's what's missing, David. Supporting your claims with evidence. There, I have directly addressed both your points. I have also provided support for my assertion about observer height. You, on the other hand, have made a number of claims and provided no evidence or reference material to back them up. I doubt you have even looked in detail at a single one of the dozen refraction references I provided to you. You have also not addressed my questions to you, in particular the one about a flat Earth map. If you can't be bothered to provide enough supporting evidence for your claims, ignore the references I provide, and if you simply ignore my questions to you, why should I read anything more of what you have to say? Will you ignore this question too? As regards David's next claim, I quote, "Your Walter refraction adjuster is just BS, end of." This is an example of one of your unsupported claims. What proof do you have that it is, quote, BS? Bislin provides full details about the science behind refraction and how he fit that into his calculator. All the information is readily available on his website, and I've provided a link. Here is the page on Walter Bislin's website talking about how he created his refraction simulator for his website, how it works, the science behind it, the math behind it. It's all here, and I've provided David with a link to it. I continue. If you're going to call his site, quote, BS, you need to show precisely where he is wrong in his work. Unless you can do so, then when you say BS, you are not only being dishonest to me and to Walter Bislin, you are being dishonest to yourself because you have fooled yourself into believing something for which you have no evidence. Just as you have no accurate flat Earth map, you have no evidence that the accepted science behind atmospheric refraction is mistaken. Do you really want to be dishonest to yourself? You call yourself a spiritual man. Do you really want to be dishonest to yourself? Thank you for hearing me out to the end of this. I hope you all found it interesting, informative, entertaining. If you did, please click the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, I always welcome new subscribers, and I'd love to read your comments. And with that, I will wish you all a great day. Bye-bye.